And the National Assembly have scheduled meetings for this morning, but at 10 o'clock they will have to break for a joint sitting of both houses. That joint sitting is to welcome the South African Olympic team after their achievements in London. This afternoon both houses will have their separate meetings. Of particular interest is the sitting of the NCOP, which will celebrate 15 years of its existence. During this special debate, the NCOP is to take stock of what has been achieved during the past 15 years. In our program this morning, we take care of some unfinished business with the National Assembly. That is question time with the Peace and Security Cluster of Ministers. But more about that later in our program. We first look at the deliberations around the Protection of State Information Bill. The committee dealing with the bill will meet from tomorrow to consider a number of new amendments. The bill was introduced in 2011, passed by the National Assembly last year, and was high on the NCOP agenda in 2012. It extended its own deadline to report on the bill at the end of next month. But meanwhile, parties have been meeting behind closed doors in order to find consensus on the bill. The lack of a public defense clause remains a sticky area. To talk to us about the bill and the recommendations under consideration, we are now joined by the chairperson of that ad hoc committee, Mr. Raseriti Tau. Good morning, sir, and welcome to our program.
Good morning, and thanks.
Mr. Tau, what has the dialogue on the bill so far produced? Are political parties now finding common ground?
Well, what we can say is that in our last meeting of the committee, all political parties agreed that our next meeting would be a platform in which political parties will now consider what they think are important issues and debate amongst themselves. But then also added to that, there was a very important issue that they raised to say that even before tomorrow's meeting, there will then be those bilaterals within and amongst political parties to try and find one another in those areas where they could not agree, or even where there are consensus. Then they should agree on those consensus and isolate those others where they cannot agree and focus on the major issues. And so far, I think it is going quite well.
But what are those remaining objections from political parties?
Well, so far, I mean, I would really be jumping the gun to say parties have agreed on this, parties have not agreed on this, or these are the thorny issues that they think they may not even agree altogether on. But maybe just to raise an issue, to say the spirit of the committee from the beginning. You would remember from the point when we were appointed by the House, we made a clarion call to ourselves, not even to anybody, but to ourselves as a committee, to say, in whatever way, we need to try something that is very, very much important, which is something that is going to further polarize or divide the South African society. And that can only happen if we do not agree up to a point where we'll have to go for a vote. So for now, that has been the spirit that has really carried the committee's work throughout, that let's avoid a situation where issues would lead us to a point where we'll have to go for a vote on the bill or whatsoever issue.
So political parties over the past few weeks have been meeting in secret behind closed doors. Isn't this a bit unusual for this parliament?
No. That is a very, very good thing, because you must understand that political parties have got diverse views, and it is important at all times that you test your views against another person's views, and on the basis of that come to an agreement and move and take the country forward. And it is for that reason that they have been meeting in those rooms where they had closed the doors amongst themselves to try and find one another on issues where they cannot agree with in the committee meeting.
The committee has also been engaging the department with regard to this piece of legislation, and the feeling among some opposition parties is that the department seems to be dictating terms to political parties. What's your response to that?
I'm quite happy that you're raising this issue, because it's a matter that we had consistently, and in particular I've consistently been communicating this thing, to say that parliamentary legislative processes need to be understood by everybody, and in particular the media. And it is for that reason that correct information will then be communicated to. There's nothing wrong, Nkokeli, because this is a bill that comes from the department, that is presented by the department, for the department to say that this is how we see the bill. This is what we think must come into the bill. And after the department had made their presentation, it is for the political parties now. It is for Parliament to say that we don't agree with you because now the bill is with us as Parliament. We are the legislators. We agree or we don't agree with you. But to say that the department is bulldozing or is dictating terms to the committee, I think it would be quite unfair on the committee now, not only on the side of the department, because I would feel bad to hear that I've been dictated to as a member of Parliament on what to do, when in actual fact I know exactly what the Constitution provide me with in terms of the tools to do my work.
But now that you will be meeting in the open again, can we expect any surprises?
Surprises in a positive way. That's what I'm looking forward to, because so far with the engagements and also testing, because obviously I've not been party to the discussions, but nothing stopped me from engaging or asking party political leaders to check whether have you met, what is the sense, how are you, do you think that there are some areas, gray areas that you could not agree to, and so forth, so that tomorrow when we get into that meeting, at least as a chair, I must have a sense of what am I going to expect. And so far I have got a positive feeling about tomorrow's meeting.
When you get into that meeting tomorrow, what will be on the agenda?
Well, on the agenda would be for political parties now to respond to or to engage around the issues that the department had presented. You must remember, our last meeting was the last opportunity for the department to respond to outstanding issues that the committee had identified, and one of them was the issue related to the archives, and the department had sought legal opinion. They presented the legal opinion, and all political parties were happy with that response to except for one comment that the written legal opinion to be made available for political parties to then look into that. But so far there was no real problems with the...
What else is needed to happen between now and the end of September with regard to meeting your own deadline for passing this piece of legislation?
That will be guided by tomorrow's meeting. That will definitely be guided by tomorrow's meeting. And I'm looking forward to a positive meeting. I'm looking forward to a meeting in which we will see a matured sense of engagement coming out. Because like I said earlier on, the main thing was always to avoid party political scoring points around this bill, but rather to look at it as South Africans, to look at it on how it is going to benefit not us as political parties, but as a country for generations to come and so forth. How do we defend our interests as a country? How do we defend the interests of our children and generations to come, to avoid a situation even where our own democracy at any point to be undermined by anybody?
Finally and briefly, Mr. Tau, whatever happens in the NCOP, it still has to go back to the National Assembly. Are you talking to your colleagues in the National Assembly? Is it in fact the NCOP Ad Hoc committee? Do you talk to your colleagues in the NA?
In actual fact, there's no Ad Hoc committee in the NA. The Ad Hoc committee in the NA was dissolved after it presented its report, and when the bill was adopted by the House, then so there's no Ad Hoc committee. There's no point where we can say we are meeting with the Ad Hoc committee in the National Assembly, because in terms of the rules of Parliament, an Ad Hoc committee is appointed for a specific period for a specific task. But in terms of the processes, yes, also we need to refer the bill back. Therefore, once we have done our work, we will also be dissolved, and then the National Assembly will have to appoint by resolution of the House an Ad Hoc committee that will then consider our proposals, and we'll take it from there.
Mr. Raseriti Tau is the chairperson of the Ad Hoc committee in the NCOP dealing with the Protection of State Information Bill. Thank you very much for coming through.